Let's get to our first guest, Texas conservative Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne. Congresswoman, always a pleasure having you here. You know, Liz Cheney announced she's declaring war on conservatives like our friend Senator Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to make sure they don't get reelected. Now, whether it's Mitch McConnell, Liz Cheney, or Mike Pence, they're declaring war on those who want things like election integrity, law and order in our streets, and a secure southern border, and a sane foreign policy. Congresswoman, the Democrats are unified in destroying the United States, but is it fair for me to say the GOP isn't unified in stopping them?
Well, I would argue, yeah, you're absolutely correct. That right now, folks that are calling themselves Republicans are absolutely not Republicans. They don't stand for, to your point in your preamble, I appreciate what you're saying about Republicans. As an elected Republican, I would like to think that we do have a unified message, that we are for smaller government, that we are for individual rights, that we are for strong border security, that we are for economic improvements, and we're for, capitalist society. I think that those are all things that we should be able to agree upon as representatives, as Republicans. But what I have found the last 18 months that I've been elected under one party rule is chaos after chaos, crisis after crisis, when we have no way to stop it, whether or not that's in the House, whether or not that's in the presidency, or whether or not that's in the Senate. It's just crisis after crisis. And if we don't pull together as a party, if we don't pull together as an electoral body to be able to stop that and to be able to cause action in November, to be able to stop what we're seeing happen every single day under this Biden administration, under this Democrat tyranny in Congress, we're just going to see more of it.
True, true. And Congresswoman, that's why we identify you as a conservative first, not just a Republican. And in my view, the conservative is as far above ideologically a Republican as a Republican is above a Democrat. So that's the pecking order, and that's why, again, why we identify you as a conservative. Wanted to get your reaction to new reports revealing that not only did Joe Biden help facilitate the Trump raid, but John Solomon is also reporting that Biden called in the FBI to look over documents seized in the raid. The New York Post is confirming that reporting. What else are we to glean from this other than that Biden is using the FBI as his own personal goon squad to take out a political opponent?
That's what it appears to be. I mean, you have politicized the FBI now, and it's happened. It's not just this. It's not new. This is happening under the Obama administration as well. You've just seen it in such a horrible fashion with this example of being able to take a former president and the current administration going in and totally raiding his personal home, not even allowing him due process that any of us are allowed to. It seems like this was just an opportunity, one, to embarrass, two, to try to find whatever they could to prevent him from running. But three, it was just such an overreaction of this administration using the FBI as their personal goon squad. I love how you put that, is exactly what we have seen. But I think it's backfired on them. I think, most Americans are looking at this and going, wait, we don't live in a banana republic. This is acting like a banana republic, where you have a sitting leader now taking out his aggressions toward a former leader that he beat in a race. You have seen this now personal, but what they have done to take away President Trump's rights as an FBI, as an administration, I think is abhorrent to most Americans. I think you're going to see it in November that they are going to.
Yeah, I think a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans, Congresswomen, are saying, "Wow, they can do that to a former president. Imagine what they're going to do to me." And a lot of Americans are afraid of their own government, which is exactly how a lot of folks in the aforementioned biased press and the Democrats like it. Most totalitarians like it that way. According to police, a self-proclaimed federal immigration magistrate, Timothy Jaffe is his name, was arrested on suspicion of human smuggling. Human smuggling at the border and resisting arrest. The other side is in open defiance, as you know, Congresswoman, of American law. We've been talking about that. I get the sense that the Republicans don't really have an answer to all of this Democrat lawlessness. Am I right?
Well, the Republican answer has been that we need to empower, our law enforcement officers to do the right thing. Stop taking tools out of their toolbox to be able to do their job. I mean, this person who has been charged with committing sex trafficking, human trafficking. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry that has been created, and has only been empowered and given an opportunity to do worse, to make more money under the current administration, who seems to have an open border policy. Come on in. We will give you money. We'll give you housing. We'll give you free education. We'll give you benefits. Just come here. And then you've got people who are taking advantage of it in an administration who, again, throws their arms up. They create the crisis. They don't have any solutions for it, and then are not doing enough to be able to prevent it from happening in the first place, but they're encouraging it. As Republicans, again, we have to have a stopgap in the House. We see these bills coming over, and there's seemingly nothing we can do when you don't have the votes. But come November, at least when the House starts taking it, you're going to see a lot of these bills that Republicans have introduced that have not made it out of committee, have not been able to even be voted or discussed, debated on the floor. You're going to see that change, and you're going to see that start coming after the lawlessness that we see at the border. And, I'll appreciate you calling illegal immigrants that. What they're doing is illegal. If we don't enforce those laws, they're meaningless. But we should not confuse immigration, legal immigration, with border security. When you've had over 66 people cross the border right now who are on the FBI's terrorist list this year alone, we have problems at the border that every single American should be concerned about. When you've got thousands and thousands of pounds of fentanyl coming over, enough to kill every man, woman, and child multiple times in this country, everybody should take note of what's happening at our border and be concerned about it.
Yeah, I got one more question for you. And by the way, I agree with everything you're saying there. While the Democrats and Biden have been putting narco-terrorists to work and padding their pockets, the Democrats' economy is starting to catch up. We're seeing a lot of stories out there about people losing their jobs. The inflation bill that they just passed does not counter inflation. We all know that. Instead, it pushes Americans to spend thousands of dollars on so-called green technology to save hundreds of dollars. If folks can't fill up their gas tanks, I'm forced to wonder, what good does that do? Instead of packing the pockets of political donors with taxpayer cash, as the Democrats are doing, you're actually empowering the folks with something called the Workforce Initiative. What's that all about?
Well, and instead of looking at how we can increase layers upon layers of bureaucracy, which is what this bill is doing by hiring an additional 87,000 IRS agents, what our office is trying to do is get people in North Texas back to work. So we've created a workforce development workshops over this summer that we're connecting schools, making sure that kids know that there are jobs that are out there that they may not even have considered before. These are jobs that are really being hired, and we can't find enough people for in those areas, whether or not that's in technology, whether or not it's in healthcare, law enforcement, public safety. We are looking at jobs that will always have a need, and we're trying to connect people to those jobs. So even tomorrow, we've got a number of people, school counselors that are going out with me, and we're going to be going around the Metroplex, going and visiting and having various tours of different businesses to see what's available. It's being practical, it's being pragmatic, but it's also solution-oriented. My focus is to get people who are right now unemployed that want to have much more control over their lives, connected to jobs that will enable them to be successful and really be in control of their future. It's about empowerment, not about killing them with taxes and over-regulations.
Amen to that. The dignity of work. What a novel concept. Congresswoman Beth Van Duyne, thank you very much. Appreciate the visit.